So last episode I was met with moderate success. I was able to beat the other run and gun level, as well as Grim Matchstick. Oh, right, that reminds me. So I did end up going back to take care of Grim Matchstick, and I got a grade I was happy about. A-. That's something I can get behind. After all, to get the 2-strip filter, I think you need to have everything average out to A, I think? Of course, if you do the pacifist runs, or if you get any S rankings, then you actually kind of surpass what you need. So it makes things a little easier in that aspect if you go for the pacifist run first. Because you're already halfway there. Now, if only I can just remember how this works. Dang it, I forgot to change it. Still have it set to the Grim Matchstick settings. There we go. Okay, I'm in. So this may not be the most efficient setup, but hey, you know, I think I can do it just fine. After all, I feel like I'm doing better than I did last episode. Because I guess that's what happens when you actually... I was about to say get enough sleep, but then I took a hit. Ah, dang it. Well, not so much about getting enough sleep and whatnot. It's more about being conscious. Dang it. I guess this is what I get for being a bit of a, ooh, look at me, I'm doing a fantastic job. I don't know why I made myself German. I don't know where did that come from. Anyway, let's do what needs to be done. Yes. I'm very much convinced that these cannons firing in the cross pattern have got to be a reference to Super Mario Bros. 3, as there's very much a cannon in that game that fires the same way. I'm going to defeat you, so you don't defeat me again. Yeah? I don't know why I keep making myself stereotypically German. I mean, at least on my dad's side of the family, I come from German heritage. Sometimes. There's a bit of a border dispute between there and France, so... Depends on which frame in history. Either I came from a small town in... my dad's side of the family came from a small town in Germany, or France. Alright, I'm gonna wait here. I think I'm doing alright. Come on, just a little more. Yay. Might as well get that extra hit point, just in case. Of course. What are you gonna do to me now? Yes! Okay. Well, I just have to look into it to figure out how in the world to do the pacifist run for, well, both of these run gun levels. Both involve some sort of wall that you need to figure out how to destroy to go forward. Yeah, I know I wasn't going to get a very good grade on that, but you know what? It's perfectly fine. After all, once I figure out how to do the pacifist runs on these again, I will get a grade better than A+. What do you know? I got a bridge. Okay, so I've got, 5 coins. Let's go to Pork Rind Shop. Let's see. Chases, pea shooter, automatic parry. The first parry move is automatic. Charge, radical barrage. Hold down attack to increase number of rapid fire. Yeah, sure. You always use another projectile. Oh, must be getting close to the end. Whetstone. Whetstone appeared in the other one, actually. Quite fascinating. But anyway, none of that is really going to matter, as I am going to go for the last level of this stage. Aviary Action. Wally Warbles. I feel like after Esther Winchester, I can handle just about anything. Now let's see if I can just remember how to do this. Yeah, it's obviously going to take a little bit for me to get back in the swing of things. There we go. Now. There we go. Missile time. Okay, made it to the next form. Right. I own the air. I fly where eagles dare. Is that an old phrase I'm unaware of? I always thought it was something about like where angels fear to fly or something. Oh, Perry! Perry the platypus. I don't know. I guess I'm still a little out of it. But I think that makes for more entertainment from what people are telling me. Get to that next form. Come on. There we go. Time for another bullet hell section. This is one of those levels I remember being difficult, but I'm not really sure if I necessarily remember the pattern of it. No! Ah. Yeah. Off to a pretty good start then. I'm starting over. Maybe I'm too concerned about getting the perfect score. I come to think of it, I should probably just stick with the bullets because Miss Chalice has a bit of a spread to her shot. It's real nice. Okay. Yeah, very good. No more. Come on. Oh! Now at least I can get the bomb. I'm the bomb. I know there's a pattern to it, I just have to figure out what it is. Come on, where are the birds? Show me the bird! Oh, there's one. Okay. Good. Let's see if I can parry this one. Yeah, I was able to parry it, but I was hoping not to take a hit by doing that. Okay, fine. Even at my best, this was never really a level I claimed to master. It was more just the idea that I did it. Can't say I ever really did it. Well, I must have did it at least somewhat well. I mean, I got the 2-strip color scheme, and you gotta get your grades up pretty high in order for that to happen. Okay, there we go. Boom! Maybe I should save that bomb for this section. I'm gonna do more. There we go. Despite it all, I think there is actually a little bit of a pattern to this. Okay. I think I've finally figured out why this bird looks so familiar throughout all these years later. I think it's yet another caricature of Peter Lorre. I mean, can't you just kind of imagine him sounding like this? My dad's brawn and I'm all brain. Together we bring the pain. I'm not really sure if that was much of a Peter Lorre impression. I guess it's... no. That's definitely Vincent Price. Trying to see how I can do a proper Peter Lorre impression. Yes, I think that... maybe that is it? No! That sounds more French, and he's Austrian, I believe.
They make me laugh.
Dang it. I'm sure I will find some sort of groove to be able to beat this. I managed to do it before. I'll do it again. How I managed to survive this long, I'm very impressed by. Okay. Just gotta really be lucky with those eggs. Well, I know if you're at the edge of the screen, you at least have more of a chance of actually doing it. Okay. Well, it's a good thing I didn't write off this attempt, because, wow, I've made it to the bird. Made it to the sun. You become the Holy Spirit real soon, I hope. Bit of a biblical joke. Unless maybe you don't really believe in the idea of them being three separate entities, but just one giant entity. Yeah, but I probably should not get into theology. It's a very intense subject these days. I could probably talk religion all day, but I know it's definitely one of those subjects you should only talk with people you really trust. And while I'm talking to a whole bunch of strangers on the internet, I don't think I can trust that kind of thing. Boom! Give me the feathers. Wonder who that could have been. I'm not sure if it's more effective when you're close by, but it feels like it. It's like the equivalent of turning off the lights on a hot summer day. It may or may not actually affect the temperature, but it feels like it does. Yeah. I've hit the egg, yeah. I was afraid of that. Even now, eggs are still one of my enemies. Spent enough time being one, you'd think I would have mastered that sort of thing by now. Woo! Come on. I don't... wow. I feel like I must have been kind of close. What in the world world is the form after that is what I'm trying to figure out. It seems I usually do the best whenever I have some sort of weird conversation going. Well, I don't know. I always kind of think about Looney Tunes whenever I play this level. There's just something about the sun. It very much reminds me of something from early Warner Brothers works. I wouldn't be able to tell you any of the names. I want to say maybe Leon Schleicher was one of the big animators at that time. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? It seems like a lot of the early animation field was German. Or at least there's a lot of names I think of that kind of fit that field. I mean, they'll even just going for the Mildenhauers that helped direct and then animate this. I mean, that feels like a very German name. Would that be Germanic? I'm trying to think. Let's see. I think of who some of the big directors were for Warner Brothers. Well, everybody probably likes to talk about Chuck Jones. Which I will admit, he did animate some of the best, but for my money, I was a bigger fan of Fritz Freleng. And on top of that, I like the idea that Fritz kind of also founded a bit of an empire, so to speak. He would later go on with a few other animators. I want to say Mirakesh was one of them, to make the Pink Panther series. The Pink Panther series is a favorite of mine, but out of all the things that animation group did, my favorite had to be the Inspector. Now, this isn't something I ordinarily do, but since I mentioned the Inspector, there's just one little tangent I want to go on. So, it was rather refreshing to see a game that looked exactly like a cartoon. And seeing that a game could be fully animated, I was thinking about animation that I was more familiar with. Animation of the 50s and the 60s. By this time, the budgets became a little less, and it was animated on the 2s rather than the 1s, which basically just means, say, somebody's waving their hand, every other frame would kind of be cut out in order to cut costs, as well as looping backgrounds and whatnot. So, from that, I drew up a few ideas as to what a game in that style would look like. The basic idea was, instead of trying to get contracts for the devil, you would basically be the inspector, having to go on cases and whatnot, with each case being a little more difficult. Like, at first you might have to look for stolen money or diamonds, and then along the way there'd probably be like some sort of boss fight and whatnot. It never really got that far off the ground, but I figured I would just show you some of the concept art I came up with it. So I wasn't really sure if I wanted to make it like a top-down perspective or a side-scrolling section, or perhaps a combination of both, where when you're on the beat you would have the top-down view, and then you would have a side-scrolling section to be able to pick up things. And then I just kind of drew some ideas of potential characters, each kind of varying with different things. So really, this character came from the original show, but I drew them just so I could have a bit of a template to be able to work off of. And along the way, I'm just kind of like, okay, what kind of detective is he going to be? Is he going to be a Frenchman like in the original show? Is he going to be part of the RCMP, perhaps? Or maybe he's going to be like a London Bobby, or maybe even a mixture of like an old noir detective with the trench coat. perhaps he's just going to be a bit more like a undercover cop, and the idea that he looks like a normal civilian, but in reality, that's what his job is. And then you got like the standard American copper, police officer, and kind of the idea of what it would look like from the 80s. I'm not really sure why I drew that one, in all honesty, because, well, the game would take place in the 60s, much like the animation piece itself. And, yeah, these two are just kind of to try to get the art style right. But like I said, it never really went anywhere. However, I'm not too concerned, because with this upcoming game, Mouse Private Investigator, well, not only do we get the lovely animated style of Cuphead, but we also get some first-person shooter action. And I am fully on board with it. As soon as that game comes out, I want to play it. And also, while I was digging around, I think I might have shown this off in another video. This is really just kind of a markup of like a public domain Cuphead VHS tape. I think there is actually gameplay footage on this tape, but it's been so long I really can't remember. But anyway, let's get back into the game, shall we? I'm just trying to see if I can come up with any other Warner Brothers animators. Oh yeah. One of the other ones I feel like is kind of a sleeper hit of classic Warner Brothers shorts would have to be Arthur McDavis? Dang it, I know his name was Arthur, but what was his last name? But one of the things I loved about him was he created this rather unique duo where it was kind of a rip-off Sylvester the Cat and this bulldog. And, well, it would get to the point where basically the rip-off Sylvester would try to be getting a bird and whatnot, but the bird would keep tricking him into hurting the bulldog. And whenever the bulldog caught wind of this, he had like a wheel of punishments for him to endure with messing with him. And it was just hilarious, the names they would come up with. Like, the biggest one I'll remember is the cat is just freaking out, bawling, saying, "No, not happy birthday!" Or what was the other one? Roll out the barrel, where basically he was just forced to carry a thing of gunpowder, and there was a small hole in it that let out the gunpowder in a small trickle. So the cat would try to run as fast as possible, but the dog would light the trail behind, and he would just explode off-screen. McKimson, I believe that's what his name was. Arthur McKimson. I'm sure I can always find it when I edit this in post, but I do want to try to see if I can figure it out in pre. Oh, so close to getting the missile. So in terms of, like, favorite characters of the Looney Tunes roster, I would probably say that Sylvester is always my personal favorite. There is always something I rather liked about his sort of lisp that he had. I feel like I'm just kind of doing a Daffy Duck impression. But probably my favorite line that Sylvester would always say is, "Ah, shut up!" It's just one of those things I just find very relatable. But also just the passion he has when he says it. Probably my personal favorite time he said that line is, so he's competing with this orange cat, which is clearly a ripoff of Marlon Brando, and Tweety is up this telephone pole, and the other cat puts a whole bunch of barbed wire on the telephone pole so that Sylvester can't get to it. So off screen, you just kind of see this orange cat lounging around, and you just hear Sylvester crying out in pain. We come back to see that Sylvester has just been ripped up by all that barbed wire. And as you just see him trying to pick up not only the shreds of his dignity, but also his hair. He just looks to the other cat, which is just staring confused at him, and goes, "Ah, shut up!" It's very hard to do that voice whenever I try to talk in this more feminine registry. I guess it's all a learning process. No! This ache, it's driving me crazy. Well, I don't think I'm beating this one, but you never know. Oh, right. So... So I'm trying to think about what other classic Sylvester moments there are. Well, as I was thinking about Sylvester moments, I was thinking about one of the greatest moments from The Inspector, which was also done by Fritz Freeling. So, essentially, the head commissioner there has a headache, and Clouseau is tasked with trying to make it so that the inspector can sleep. Well, all along the way, there's this cat that just keeps meowing like crazy and driving everybody, including the inspector, off the wall. Well, it gets to the point where it's like midnight or whatnot. And so the cat just starts meowing a nice little jazz number. And so the inspector obviously just had enough of having to deal with that all day. He puts a suppressor on his gun and just shoots the cat in the middle of a condenser. But really the topper on top of all that was the idea that in killing the cat, that was the last of the 9 lives, so all 8 of the other cats, as they're going up to heaven, just start singing like crazy. And the inspector's just like, I can't stand it! It's fun to discuss classic cartoons because, well, unless you've seen them, the logic makes, like, absolutely no sense. This game excels. Not only did they get the animation style properly, but just the cartoon logic of these kind of worlds. I mean, the idea that the guy's head turns into a 3-way finger gun. I mean, if you were to describe that in any other game, it's just like, what are you playing? It's like, oh, it's an animated cartoon from the 30s. Okay, that makes sense. I'm trying to think what was the weirdest piece of animation I ever saw. I guess it's kind of hard to say weird, because if you think about it, in the world of cartoons, it's relatively normal for, like, a dog or a cat to just kind of tap dance or something. It's all about the idea that, does it make sense within the context of that universe? Like, a good example always brought up is the idea of Goofy and Pluto. In that world, it somehow makes sense that Goofy would be walking Pluto, even though they're both dogs. But yet, if it happened in Looney Tunes, that would very much be like a, well, now I've seen everything, or my name isn't Larimore, which it isn't. Now, if I make it to the final form, I'll be impressed. Was that close? No. I guess when it comes to the weirdest cartoons I can think of, I think Tex Avery is definitely the king of very abstract humor. And that's humor I can very much gel with. I'm trying to see if I could come up with a really good example. Well, let's see. He came up with this character called Nutty the Squirrel. Which, the humor in that I just find absolutely hilarious. I'd like to see more of them, but I'm not really sure how many shorts the squirrel ever had. Let's see, maybe the craziest gag I can remember is... So, the squirrel is on the run from a truant officer because he's skipping school. The truant officer is a dog, and, well, the dog is chasing him into what looks like a tree. And he decides to grab the tail, only to realize that the tail is like 50 feet long. Well, would you know, on the other side of the tree, you see the squirrel with basically just a 50-foot hose of genuine imitation squirrel tail. And I don't know what's even more hilarious, just the idea of how seamless that sort of thing is, or just this idea that he actually ended up buying it as opposed to making it himself. Dang it. I don't know if I can get the missile, perhaps. There we go. Bring on the final form. I don't think I'm gonna make it, but I'll try. Okay, there was absolutely no dodging that one. I think probably one of the other big gags I can think about when it comes to Tex Avery is... So, it was in one short called, I believe, Swing Shift Cinderella. And the basic idea of that one is that Cinderella is, well, working the swing shift at night because she's out during the day. Working at the factory because, you know, it's like the World War II setting. But the thing I love about it is it starts off with Little Red Riding Hood in the woods. And the big bad wolf is, well, chasing Red Riding Hood. And Little Red Riding Hood is just like, well, wait a minute, this can't be the right cartoon. Look at the title. And then they both stop and it's just like, Swing Shift Cinderella. Well, that doesn't sound like we're supposed to be in either one of these, is it? Oh well. And I think one of the other big things that Tex Avery had was he would have these little featurettes, like one of them is the home of tomorrow, where it was all the idea of like, okay, so this is the working man's fridge, and it's like full of meat, and this is the fridge for the wife, and it's like full of salad, and the fridge for the mother-in-law, and it's just full of poison. And then there was another featurette I remember was the car of tomorrow, I believe, which has a few jokes that have definitely aged poorly with, well, basically one of the gags is it's a Native American driving a car, and the canopy is actually a teepee. But probably the big gag I remember is, so it's just like, check out this car with an extra wide bumper. Let's see all those pedestrians try to get away from this. And what was the other one? Oh yeah, it even comes with a glass bottom so you can see everybody that you hit. I hope you didn't run over your best friend. That was close. I think that's about all I really have to mention about with Tex Avery. But if you ever get the chance, if you like really absurd humor, he was definitely the king of that. Oh, my personal favorite gag. So, it is often a thing in animation that sometimes when the cells of the characters are put on, it's not necessarily done in the most clean way. So occasionally you get like little pieces of dust and grime, and well, you also get like hairs every so often. Well, there was one short where the guy was a dog, wanted to be a conductor, where this hair kept showing up at the bottom of the screen. Well, wouldn't you know that the dog not only notices it, but he plucks it out of the frame. And I'm just like, that is absolutely brilliant. Tex Avery is a genius. That, plain and simple. Who would think of that? And, well, that's about all I can think of. I know he directed some of the really early Bugs Bunny cartoons where he had, like, pieces of tan on his face, and, he had a very different voice and a very different laugh. I'm pretty sure it was Mel Blanc the whole time, but he was just very different. And also in really early episodes, I don't know why, but Elmer Fudd was very pudgy. In fact, you may remember the meme Big Chungus that was going around a while ago. That was during that era where Elmer Fudd was fat. Well, maybe fat is too big a word. Too big. Too harsh a word. Rotund, shall we say. And, well, basically Bugs Bunny was mocking him by becoming him. And, yeah, who would have figured that would have been such a meme? But then again, who's to really explain much of meme culture these days? I mean, how in the world did that boy ever really go anywhere? I mean, it's just a frog on a unicycle. In fact, what context would you even use this meme? Because I feel like that's kind of the point of a meme, is it's something that you can kind of adapt here and there to have it fit different jokes in different settings and whatnot. And I have no idea how in the world that boy would fit into that criteria. Well, seem to be getting the parrying down alright. You gonna bring on the laser gun again? Yeah. Yeah, I'm feeling kind of confident. If I could get 2 hits going into the final form, maybe I'll be onto something. Now, if I can get a missile in there, that'd be great. Dang. I somehow knew something was going to be on the very edge, and I am also on the very edge. I'm trying to think what other animators I know of by name. Well, I'm just trying to think of the early Saturday morning cartoons. So I guess really the 3 big ones. You had MGM Studios. They were a little later in the game. But probably their biggest claim to fame had to be Tom and Jerry. And it's crazy to think that Tom and Jerry was the first time that the iconic animation duo of Richard Hanna and Joe Barbera started. Now, if those names sound familiar to you, they had, well, I was talking about how Fritz Freleng had a bit of an empire. The Hanna-Barbera Empire was basically the equivalent to the British Empire. They had so many different pieces of animation to their name. Their golden era, I'd say, really struck out in the 60s when they first started with the Flintstones. It was at that point that, well, other animators hated them because they very much cut corners so they could meet the weekly deadline. So everybody makes fun of the idea of the Flintstones for having, like, repeating backgrounds and whatnot, but they may have made fun of them, but at the same time, people were watching an animated series on primetime television, which I feel like at that point had never been done before. I'm trying to think of even now if that's really But does primetime even really exist anymore? I mean, I know there's like late night television, but I feel like that's just kind of a legacy thing that was left over from a different era, in all honesty. In fact, I guess that is the major thing to think about as well, is there's not really any major broadcasting services anymore. I mean, sure, we still got the big dogs, NBC, ABC, CBS, and all that other good stuff, but they didn't really have the corner market like they did back in the day. Of course, NBC really had the corner market because for a while that was basically one of only 2 stations at the time. And so it was the idea that it's like, well, either you watch this or you watch the other station. Which was probably some, like, local area that was just like, hey, you can post your bills here, you can put your commercials and whatnot. Listen to me, I talk about this as if I actually lived through that time period. This is just what people that actually have lived through that time period tell me. The idea that there was only really 2 television stations at the time. But I guess probably the other big thing to think about as well is that the Flintstones, well, like I said, not only like the first major animated show to be on prime time on a major network and whatnot, but it really paved the way to a lot of adult cartoons to come on ahead. So, for instance, I feel like The Simpsons, the Flintstones kind of may have inspired Matt Groening, however you pronounce his name, I am sorry, Matt, may have inspired him to be able to do such a thing. I'm trying to think if there were any other adult cartoons at that time. Well, I mean, there was also the Jetsons, which, here's the crazy thing, while I'm personally a bigger fan of the Jetsons compared to the Flintstones, the Jetsons really didn't have that many episodes. I mean, they did have a bit of a resurgence in the 80s and whatnot. Same with the Flintstones, actually, when you actually see Pebbles and Bam Bam as teenagers. But, the Jetsons basically just got another season. Dang it. So I'm trying to think if there was anything really of note from that time period. Once again, it was also under the Hanna-Barbera tagline that these shows were later brought back again. Was I anywhere near it? Yes. So let's see, what I call the golden age of Hanna-Barbera cartoons. So, dang it. 2 hits in a row right there. Well, they certainly had a lot of what I think people would refer to as those meddling kids dramas, which arguably the most famous had to be Scooby-Doo, because it's something that's still around and keeps being rebooted. I'm not really sure what the world makes Scooby-Doo so timeless, but there were a few other ones that the animation duo came up with as well, such as Fang Face, where basically one of the members was a werewolf. And they would just kind of get him to transform at various places to be able to defeat the bad guy and whatnot. That completely missed. And one of the other big ones was Speed Buggy. Oh, and Jabberjaw, where basically it was the Scooby-Doo formula, but it was a shark instead of a dog. And then there was also Josie and the Pussycats. I think it was kind of part of that Meddling Kids drama. Genre. And it's kind of fascinating to think that there was a R-rated movie that was kind of a reboot for Josie and the Pussycats. So I guess there is a little bit of a cult following with that one. But I'm not really sure. Like, how often do you have people talk about Jabberjaw these days? I think people might know Speed Buggy as, well, there's a famous episode of Johnny Bravo where he ends up meeting Mystery Incorporated, the gang from Scooby-Doo. And at the very end of it, Speed Buggy shows up for a brief cameo. And, yeah, Johnny Bravo. That is another fantastic show. I love that sort of absurdist sense of humor that is present throughout it. And I do know that Johnny Bravo has become a bit of a controversial figure these days, much like Pepe Le Pew. But I don't know, while Pepe Le Pew kind of comes off more as like a predator that just doesn't take no for an answer, I feel like Johnny just kind of comes off more as like just a meathead that's just, it's not so much like Pepe Le Pew that he's getting the message but refuses to listen. Johnny Bravo just simply isn't getting the message, and I think that's where the humor comes from. Is the idea that like he's this big muscle-bound man who has like all these quick one-liners, but yet he can't understand why he can't get a date. Oh! Wait, where did that pill come from? So here's probably the crazy thing to mention about with Johnny Bravo, kind of going back to adult cartoons and whatnot. So it's crazy to think that both Butch Hartman, who would later go on to make The Fairly Odd Parents, Danny Phantom, and if anybody remembers, Tough Puppy. He also made a few other shows, I think. He started his career, well, maybe not started his career, but he did have a stint where he worked on Johnny Bravo. And another famous animator that worked on Johnny Bravo as well was Seth MacFarlane. So yeah, and Seth MacFarlane, I think a lot of people know that he is the creator as well as several voices in Family Guy. And I think he also had a hand in making Robot Chicken as well. Which, for me, the humor of Robot Chicken is a bit hit and miss, but I cannot deny that the stop motion animation within the show is just breathtaking. It is so well done. Let me think. Probably my favorite Robot Chicken sketch would probably have to be Emperor Palpatine's phone call. So it's like Darth Vader saying, yeah, the Death Star is destroyed. Where do we go from here? And Palpatine is just like, oh, come on, that thing wasn't even paid off yet. What, you got like an ATM in that torso wipe right there? Well, get your 6-foot manic butt back here, otherwise I'll tell you how much of a whiny witch you were about Patty Molly, or Panda Bear, or whatever his name is. And then I think probably the other big sketch from Emperor Palpatine there is the elevator is broken, so he just has to take the escalator, which not only takes forever, but along the way, he just has to keep saluting all his fellow stormtroopers. And it just gets to a point where he just can't stand it anymore, so he just simply starts flipping them all off. But probably the big topper on that joke is the very last thing he encounters on that escalator, which is just a droid simply yelling, "What's up?" Those eggs are too big. Come on, shoot the laser gun. Not that way. Yeah. remembering one of the other fun gags of Johnny Bravo. So basically, he goes to this discount toy store where there's a whole bunch of things that have been mislabeled and whatnot. So one of them is a Ken doll, and Johnny's just like, so what's wrong with you, buddy? I'm wearing white. It's after Labor Day. There's no way Barbie would want to be with me. And one of them was like a mystery puzzle, which the mystery is what the prize is if you unlock it, which somehow Johnny not only figures it out, but it shoots a needle of poison right into him, which the little toy explains, you have 10 seconds to live. Choose it wisely. So he just picks up a porno bag. I mean, it's a kid's show, so it's obviously heavily implied, but come on, that's basically what he's looking at. No! Like a lot of these shooting levels, it's all just trying to figure out how to be able to build up enough health points to make it to that final form with anything decent. Come on, give me the laser gun. Yeah. Another one. There we go. No. Seem to be parrying that, alright. Don't know how, but I am. Boom! Alright, I don't think I'm beating this, but you never know. Oof. That was close. Maybe. There we go. Very good. Laser gun. There we go. Thank you. Yeah, it's pretty easy to get the parry bonus on this one, I think. So I'm just trying to stay alive long enough. Dang it. I got one final hit for this. Well, I might as well kill you. I'd say it's a good run. I managed to make it to the final form with 3 hits. Let's see what I can do. Okay, 2 hits. One hit. I don't think I'm doing this. Yes! Yes! And I know I had to get the parry bonus on that one. I probably got like 20 different parries. Woo! Got the solid A-. A day at the fair. Hard to necessarily say if it was fair, but you know what? I did it. I did it! And I appear to have found another bridge. Wally Warbles' soul contract. Now, before we proceed to the next area, there is a bit of a side quest I want to do first. Who ever heard of a barbershop trio? If we can't find our 4th member, we'll never sound right again. Be a pal and let us know if you spot him, won't you? Let me see if I can find him. Can't help thinking he's hiding somewhere in one of the bushes. Well, I'll just kind of check around the edges of the map. Aha, there you are. At last, I thought I'd never see another living soul again. I lost my way while searching for coins. No one has money for haircuts these days, thanks to that blasted casino. Well, I better get back to my pals in the quartet. Oh, that was fantastic. Well, since we got them together, let's hear their lovely song. Oh boy, you did it! For a quartet once more! Gee, you must have run yourself ragged tracking him down. Sure. We can't thank you enough. Let's celebrate with a song. Ready, boys? Key of B flat. It's nice to rest your eyes and maybe go outside. Grab a book and get some air. So what are you waiting for? Why not take a quick break? Tune the radio. There's chores to do, there's leaves to rake. Strum the old banjo. You can practice your Lindy Hop. Bum 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 bum, and maybe later sing with your barbershop. Why not take a little quick break and come back for more? Then come back for more. Please come back for more. Well, thanks for the song, although I kind of do most of that stuff already. I don't really have a lot of trees where I am, so I don't have to worry about raking, but, well... I mean, I read books, I turn on the radio, and, yeah, whatever good stuff. I'm trying to remember. I can't have thinking there was a secret coin somewhere out of bounds. Maybe somewhere around here. Maybe not. Well, let me just kind of circle around here real quick. Maybe there's a little something around the mystic pool. No, doesn't look like it. Well, on to the Dye House in Inkwell Island 3. Like I might have underestimated you bums. You gave it to them debtors, but good. Go on over to the next act. Lots of fun times waiting for you here. There. So here's one of the things I find absolutely nuts. If my research is correct, the same person that sings this song is also the same person doing the scatting in Bootlegger Boogie. Maybe someday I'll be able to have that range of singing. I think I've got the lows all right. No, I cannot let you pass. Don't you mess with me. Don't mess with King. Inkwell Island 3. And I think we get another cutscene. The little mugs have some fight in them. I'll say that much. They're making mincemeat out of them dummies.
You see, I knew there was something special about those fellas.
Well, don't be too sure just yet, boss. I think there's something fishy about those two.
Don't blow your wicked dice. If those two little freaks try anything, I'll be waiting.
I'm amazed I was able to do that voice without cracking. I'm not really sure if that particular voice fits this interpretation of the devil, but whatever. So, we've made it to Inkwell Island 3. Well, I hope that you will join me next time for some more fun and fancy-free. Until next time, keep having fun.